We should probably now talk about the Ethereum Foundation. Like, what is it? Every time there seems to be a foundation created in any protocol, it seems to go wrong because a foundation implies some kind of centralization. The Bitcoin Foundation failed. There was an attempt at creating a similar one a couple of years ago that got disbanded just because people disagreed with it. So explain who the Ethereum Foundation is, what it's designed to do.
I'll do my best. So by way of background, I first touched blockchain, Bitcoin, Ethereum, late 2016, and then getting into early 2017, I was sort of taking some time off work at that time. And so I was in an exploratory mode, learned about it, was fascinated by it, it hadn't clicked for me before because I had been a founder of a startup and I think I'd just been very heads down mode up to that point. Sort of went down the rabbit hole very rapidly here in New York. I started attending meetups like BitDevs, which I mentioned, some kind of Ethereum events as well. And attended the Ethereum DevCon 3, which happened in November, I think, October, November 2017 in Cancun. And went down there as a volunteer. Literally know nothing. I mean, I walked into the room having no clue what a smart contract was, more or less. And because I was a volunteer, I was working alongside the organizers, which was the Ethereum Foundation, and got a chance to kind of be a fly on the wall for a lot of the research meetings that were happening there kind of prior to the conference. And was hired by the Ethereum Foundation shortly after that. So November, December 2017, worked as a contractor for the foundation. Basically everyone aside from the directors are contractors. That's just how the foundation works for a couple of years. And then parted ways in 2019. There weren't really titles, but I was a core developer. I was working on a particular piece of the technology called EWASM, Ethereum Flavored WebAssembly, which was a plan to build a new smart contract virtual machine for ETH2. But also doing a lot of advocacy, a lot of traveling, a lot of education, a lot of hosting meetups, hiring, speaking at events, that kind of stuff. And governance, ultimately. That's like a kind of, was hired sort of in this hybrid role as an MBA, as someone with kind of founder experience running startups, to act as an internal consultant, kind of interview all the individual teams and kind of figure out ways to introduce better like management practices at the foundation. And that's a whole separate story about what happened there.
It kind of has shareholders because they're not shareholders like by the traditional term, but proxy shareholders in terms of the people who hold a lot of ETH, who have an interest in the direction of Ethereum, whether they bought them or they gained them as part of the pre-mine. So this whole war about pre-mines, I only think matters if you're trying to create the best money in the world. I don't think anyone else cares. Like Bitcoiners hate the pre-mine, but they're trying to compare two things that are slightly different.
Right.
I don't see it. I see Ethereum, even if it is decentralized and not a company, I still see it like a company. I consider the pre-mine as just the shares that the founders got.
Sure. I think that's a reasonable first approximation.
And therefore, it kind of has proxy shareholders.
Right. So, okay, a couple things to talk about here. The first is that, let me be very clear, the pre-mine ultimately was the biggest reason I left Ethereum, period. There were other reasons involving Ethereum Foundation, governance. We could talk about those. But, look, I previously worked in traditional finance. I worked for a hedge fund a few blocks from here, and then in Hong Kong after that. And felt that like my role in the world, my role in human society was a cog in a machine that was making rich people richer. And that's an oversimplification, just to be clear. I mean, there are like pension funds and things, ordinary people's pensions that invest in things like hedge funds. Okay, so it's an oversimplification, but that's what I felt like after a few years of doing this. And, I started this job in 2006, was there through the financial crisis. I'm a very values-driven person, and I felt that I wasn't able to live up to those values in that role, okay? Fast forward a few years, went back to school, started a company, sold the company, got into Ethereum.
You're about to say the same thing happened again.
That's where I'm going with the story. It's fairly obvious, right? Yeah. But so, look, the first year in Ethereum, I said, I'm going to keep an open mind. I don't care what they pay me. I don't care if they pay me. I want to maximize learning. I want to travel. And thank you, Ethereum Foundation, for giving me the opportunity to do that. It was very eye-opening. But after a year, 18 months, I was like, holy shit, like, what am I really doing here? I'm really pumping Joe Lubin's bags. All due respect to Joe Lubin and all the other, Ethereum whales. It's just not what I want to do. And the reason for that was largely the pre-mine, right? Because at that moment, 70%, 70%, okay, 70% of all the Ether in existence as of a couple years ago had been distributed in the pre-mine. Today, it's about 60%. It's been diluted a little bit, right? So I don't know where you draw. I don't know what the right number is. I mean, we will never have another Bitcoin. We'll never have another immaculate conception. Again, I don't know if the right number is 10%, 15%, 20%. You could draw the line wherever you want. 70, 80, 70, 60 it's too much. It's just too much by almost an order of magnitude.
And who are the biggest holders within that? I know Vitalik, but I don't...
Vitalik's holdings are public, by the way.
Yeah.
He's very transparent.
And I don't... The strange thing about Vitalik is I don't see him as financially driven.
He's not. Trust me. I know him. He's not.
Yeah. Whereas Joe Lubin clearly is.
He's a businessman.
Yeah. So Vitalik, Joe Lubin, who are the other key... Charles Hoskinson, perhaps?
I mean, here's the thing. We other than the very small number of people like Vitalik who are public, also the Ethereum Foundation multi-sig wallet address is public. We don't know.
Okay.
We don't know. I can assume that the people who happen to be the crypto bros that happened to be in the room at that time and the very small number of investors who kind of got Ethereum circa 2015 did very well.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So you've joined the foundation.
But the point is, it's on the order of a few hundred people, maybe 1,000, maybe a couple thousand people, right? It's a very small number of people.
But within that, there's a few who have very significant interest.
Yeah, it's a very long tail. And, I've heard rumors, this is totally anecdotal, that a very small number of individuals, one or two-ish people single-handedly bought up very large percentages of the pre-mine, basically the ICO,
okay.
Because they were able to participate pseudonymously. There were no limits.
Okay, so you joined the foundation
2017.
2017.
Right?
You are a Bitcoiner, but also interested in Ethereum, and you're not hugely financially driven, but you're interested in Ethereum as what it can be and what it can do. So
the social side.
Yeah. So you're
side.
joining the foundation to contribute to that. You feel like this is a good use of your time.
I felt like Ethereum was the most important project in the world at that moment. That's why I wanted to contribute to it.
Not because you want to create NFTs, because you think you can rebuild
human institutions, better institutions,
which we all know are broken right now. Interestingly, the long conversation I had yesterday with Rob Hamilton, the day before, was about how institutions have been broken by the broken monetary system, which was really interesting. But anyway, so we don't need to debate whether it can or can't. Some people say DAO's fucking stupid, some think great. It doesn't even matter right now. That was what your goal was.
Correct.
Okay.
Also, just learning about, I'm a computer scientist, first and foremost. I'm a software developer. I'm also an armchair economist. I've always been deeply fascinated by economics, by anthropology, by the study of human institutions, coordination, jurisprudence, law, things like that, right? And so Ethereum just tied together all these different threads for me, and money as well. I mean, I had background working in finance as well. So I was like, holy shit, this is the 7 things I'm most passionate about. This project touches all of them.
Okay.
So it was just head exploded, stare at the wall for 30 minutes to let it all sink in. Okay, I want to work on this. And they gave me the opportunity to do that.
Great. So you joined in 17 and you leave in 19.
And I spent all of 2018 and the first part of 2019 just almost nonstop on the road, traveling conference to conference, meeting people, doing sprints with my team, roughly 50% advocacy, social stuff, 50% technical stuff. And the advocacy included a lot of governance stuff.
So where did things go wrong? What was the point where you're like, I'm not sure what I'm doing here. I'm not sure what this is. Can you talk me through that?
Yeah, I don't think there was a particular moment. I think it was my experience with the Ethereum Foundation was negative almost from the very beginning. And I can explain what that means.
Yep.
It's interesting because, as I touched upon earlier, I still think very highly of Ethereum as a project, as a community, as a technology, as a platform. And I don't think very highly of the Ethereum Foundation, given my experiences there. And I think it's important to emphasize that these things can both be true, right? Okay. And so what kept me there was my love for the project and the people I met. What kept me there as long as I was there was my love for those things, in spite of the negative experiences I had with the foundation. So,
and did it get to the point where you were, because you can still do your work, your advocacy work, or did you get to the point where you felt you actually were ethically compromised in doing your work?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think probably there was an ethical conflict there because of what I said, because of the pre-mine. That's what I'm saying. That for me was sort of the final straw. Okay. There were a host of other things, but I was like, look, I can deal with these things. The Ethereum Foundation wasn't paying me well. They weren't treating me well. They weren't treating a lot of people well. There's a whole host of like internal management and governance issues. Maybe I could overlook all of that for the project and for my love of the project. But so I guess maybe the answer to your question is when I became more active. Again, just to be clear, right? Started late 2017. I said, look, I'll give it 12 to 18 months. I'm just going to sit down, shut the fuck up, do the best work I can do, be the better person, and give this a chance to sort itself out. It didn't, right? So fast forward 12 to 18 months, my level of discomfort and that ethical, I'm remembering now, actually, I have almost PTSD over this because I had a lot of sleepless nights in early 2019. And I think that it was me wrestling with my conscience. And that's what led me, after those 18 months had passed in early 2019, to become more activist, take a more activist role. And so one of the things I was trying to do was create a new foundation, right?
Okay.
Not replace the Ethereum Foundation, not destroy the Ethereum Foundation, but just create another pole of influence in the ecosystem. And there was a lot of support for this.
A completely separate foundation.
Completely separate foundation, because I felt that the Ethereum Foundation was irreparably broken. Where I actually, like, this is just, like, for me from the beginning, Ethereum was always about creating value for the world, for everyday people, right? And again, about dismantling these shitty institutions and existing hierarchies and power structures we have in the world. And to find myself in these rooms, around these tables with a bunch of wealthy white dudes from primarily Europe and North America, making decisions about a network worth billions of dollars, paternalistically.
Changing the monetary policy?
The monetary policy, we can talk about that, how that happened, right? It made me very uncomfortable, and I wanted to share that message with the world. I wanted to share this experience, and people really didn't like that. It made them very uncomfortable.
So, God, there's so many things to talk about.
I know, right?
Right, let's start with the response to the tweet thread. Just give me the short version. I think I need that to know that now.
Yeah.
I'm going to imagine some support, some hate.
Some small degree of support from really close friends.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what got me through it. Like people reaching out privately, right? In DMs saying, I totally agree.
It's always privately.
Always DMs, right? A lot of hate. And
Okay.
it's funny, when you and I first discussed having this conversation during this episode, you said, be prepared for backlash. And I was like, dude, like maybe it'll happen, but it can't possibly be worse than what I experienced in 2019. It was bad. It was really, I'd never experienced anything like it up to that point in my life. There are like long threads on Reddit of people calling me an evil, baby eating monster. And like even people that I considered friends kind of suddenly deciding that I had become evil and been corrupted by the Bitcoiners or something, that I was a Trojan horse sent in to destroy Ethereum. Conspiracy theories. It was wild. Meditation got me through it, honestly.
Do you think it's because there's people who genuinely disagree with you? And do you think it's also because people felt their bags got threatened?
I think it's the latter, right? I think it's this autoimmune response, right? It's tribalism is really what it comes down to. Like if people disagree, and there are people who disagree and who did engage with me constructively and said, hey, Lane, you have these ideas about a new foundation, about a better way to fund the public good, right? Than we're able to achieve right now. Let's talk about that. Let's poke holes in this. But I mean, it was mostly just vitriol.